Africa, if you look at over-the-counter stocks, you're finding a very different situation than you would internationally. In South Africa, the reasoning is different. These companies are over-the-counter not because of the inability to provide these requirements, but rather because they want to restrict who exactly can purchase the shares. These are the BE companies that I'm talking about. Now, to give you a little history about South Africa, let's just think back to 1994, end of apartheid. We have lots of stocks on the stock exchange. Government comes in and says these stocks are not basically owned by a representative proportion of the population, and therefore we're going to have a BE, point system. One of the points is going to be ownership. And basically what you will need to do to basically get the points, you need to transfer some ownership over to certain BE owners. And one way to do that was obviously to sell the shares to the general population, or general BE population. However, in order to make the BE population buy these BE shares, one thing that companies chose to do basically was reduce the price. So you'd be getting a company that's worth 100 rands a share, it would be 90 rands a share. Now, a logical investor, given something that's worth 90 rands a share that he can sell for 100 rands a share, will take the 90 rand deal and then immediately go off and sell it for 100 rands, making a 10 rand profit and therefore being quite happy. However, for the company, that doesn't fulfill its purpose. Just because the person originally owned the share was BE, once he sold it, that ownership no longer holds. And therefore, if they were just going to give out these shares without having any kind of time locking period, then they would not be able to achieve the targets that they require. So that's obviously one thing they looked at, locking in the investor. So if you went and bought a BE share, you had a locking period in which you could not sell it. But obviously that is quite, disadvantageous to the investor. Most investors like to be able to sell shares. One of the advantages of being part of the stock exchange is liquidity. And therefore, they came up with a second way of doing it. There was an initial locking period, plus there's a second locking period. For the first locking period, maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 years, you aren't able to sell the shares to anybody. But once you get beyond that period, you are able to sell the shares, but only to another BE investor. So for instance, Sasol says for the first 3 years, you can't sell the shares to anybody, but after the 3-year period, you can sell it to anybody as long as they are BE. Now, if you do that via the exchange, it's difficult to monitor who's a BE investor or not. If you do it over the counter, on the other hand, you control who can buy that share because you're not part of the exchange. You're creating your own little platform in which you can actually control who's part of it or not. And that's why over-the-counter companies in Africa, certain of them anyway, are much more attractive than over-the-counter shares in other parts of the world because you're not getting something that is on the over-the-counter or using the over-the-counter method because they want to avoid regulations. They're doing it to restrict who the buyers are. You're getting a well-regulated, well-run large company at a large discount. And these discounts can be significant. I mean, we're talking some of them are trading in the region of maybe 40+% as a discounted net asset value or fair value, one might say. And they encompass a number of companies that you may well be aware of. For instance, you can buy stakes in Sasol or Able, or even buy parts of Naspers by looking at over-the-counter companies in South Africa.